Welcome to the podcast that is dedicated to helping you drive maximum value for your events venue. The Venue Performance Podcast is presented by me, Peter Heath, MD of Venue Performance, and Phil Rogers, our head of all things technical. This is our first podcast, and we hope to produce one of these every couple of weeks. The format will have three elements to it. Firstly, we will answer questions that anyone out there has on venue performance and how your venue can drive extra value. Secondly, as our platform is new, we'll take some deep dives into the platform and explore how it works, what it does, and what the benefits are of using it. And thirdly, we'll be talking to interesting people in the industry and getting their take on all things venue performance. So for this, our first episode, I thought I'd introduce you to the man behind the platform, Mr. Phil Rogers, who is, he's our technical guru behind the platform. And whilst I've been out there collecting all the plaudits and the praise for building such an awesome product, I thought it only fair to share and to tell you that it's not me, it's Phil's work.
I don't mind.
Well, yeah, I know, but I've been taking all the glory, and I feel it's unfair.
Well, you know, nerds will inherit the earth, so
yes.
I don't mind being behind the scenes.
No, well, I know you do. You don't like being front of stage, but I don't want to hide you. I don't want to keep you hidden. This is not Harry Potter being hidden under the stairs or anything like that. Even though I don't even know that's the story, because I've never read a Harry Potter in my life.
No, they do keep him under the stairs, but because they hate him.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, they might. Hopefully they won't hate you.
Actually, they keep him under the stairs through their own insecurity that he's better than them. So
there you go, and that's not me. I'm presenting you to the world. The man behind the platform. Sounds like the $6 million man. Anyway, so one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce everybody to you is because I want to skim the surface of your mind and talk about the platform, how we came to build it together, or you built it whilst I was banging on in the background, and get your views on why the industry is so well suited to using this platform, which I know you've been building for a number of years now. It's not just events that it's used for. So what have you been doing? What's during lockdown? What other stuff have you been up to? Yeah.
Well, you know, lockdown's been a challenge for events and venues, I guess. It was a good time for us to hone our skills. The best time to switch the database on and off is 1 a.m. in the morning when no one's looking. So it's the same. It's probably the best time to introduce an event technology to venues while they were somewhat quiet, because we could, I guess, run through it quicker and throw caution to the wind and switch it on and see how it goes and invent along the way. Instead of having, that's the benefit of having two people. Nothing survives a committee of three. So having you and I, where you say they need this and that's what they've always wanted, and this is the chart that my clients enjoy the most or they get the most out of. So hurry up and make it.
Yes, well, there's a lot of that, late night calls. Have you done it yet?
Yeah, but it's as easy as that when there's two people. When you have a dev team or the dreaded committee of opinion, stuff doesn't survive. But about opinions and data, opinions are always bad. Data and evidence is good in all things. So if all we have is opinions, we'll use mine. If we have data, we'll go with that. So I didn't say that.
No, you didn't say that. So
I can't remember who did.
Clever.
Yeah, someone cleverer than me. Clever enough to say that, and I'm not clever enough to remember their name. But the phrase is true. So during lockdown, we fine-tuned what we know about the presentation of available data, and we came to a conclusion which was something of a pivot for events data. I've been building event software for years for registration and session management, speaker management, technical management, Twitter walls, anything that you've ever seen at an event. Someone either put it there or bought it because perhaps a piece of software I wrote told them to, which is events run on software. And I've been fortunate enough to write plenty of software for events. And they always lead up to the event. The data is, we're going to need this equipment on this day, or that speaker, his subject, this time in this room, and delegates choose their favorite sessions, all that stuff that you've ever done when you've been to an event, right? As a delegate. Mm-hmm. That all happens, and then we're finished and it's done. The future is a target, and we know we need a projector in that room at 3 p.m. because that's what we know we need. The evidence is because the speaker says so. What's interesting about this data pivot, or what's happened recently with the lockdown and stuff, is that now we need data to project previously unknown things. I've only ever worked with the known. Who came? What did they see? What did they bring? What did they take away? And what you're going to sell them when you call them next week. Data is essential for running an event, and probably a venue space also.
Well, to put it, I mean, data to date, until now, until our wonderful, beautiful system, the only data that anybody's been concerned with is yesterday's data. Historical benchmarking. What did we do last week, last month, last year? Yeah. Nobody gives a shit about that now.
Well, also perhaps not quite yesterday's, but a very, very short horizon, because if more people have favorited a session than the room allows, we're moving the room. The agenda changes, everyone knows, they all go to the bigger room. All the equipment moves, and data does that job. It's a utility. It's not magic, it's just hard work. You just get it to do that stuff. The horizon is very short, you're reactive. Now, what we did is we built a horizon that is as far off as you can record a booking. And it's the same thing. Do we need a projector at 3 o'clock? Well, what we did is, do you need your great big event space next year in August? What are the bookings looking like for other spaces similar to yours, or even yours? You know, look at your utility compared against your comparison set, people who you would consider your peers in size and shape and offering. So that's been interesting for me. I've enjoyed doing something that's less of a utility and more of an analysis and conjecture, and drawing forth information and ideas that actually, when I look at charts, I know what they mean. Mathematically, I could probably guess what they mean, but they mean something completely different to a venue owner who looks at that chart, and they know their business way better than I do, and they know how their business moves and how the bookings move and they come in, and how events come and go and pass, and what the capacity. They look at that chart and see something else, and that's really good, because I only ever have built software that says, and here's what it is, and that's a fact. You better go and do it. But it's really good to say, here's all the data, the conjecture, what you draw from this is your skill. We do it as we get you as close to the answer as you possibly can get. That last inch is your skill in your business. That me, as this mathematician or statistician, whatever, I can only present this to you in the most convenient format for you to say, now I know what I'm going to do. I know what that means.
Yeah, and I think, well, first of all, going back to projecting, not projecting data, but what the projection of future data can give you. I mean, it's really weird, because we created two extra. We were building the benchmarking. We built the benchmarking. It was all wonderful. It was all historic, and then we went into lockdown. And then nobody gave us stuff about yesterday's data. And it was like, oh, okay, that's a bit rubbish. We've just built a platform for yesterday that nobody cares about, which of course they will in the fullness of time. They will definitely, you know, it will all be very relevant, but just the here and now, it's not as relevant. And so I we set about building the two reports, which are the bookings report and the booking trends report, which measure activity, because there's still activity going on for the future. There's just no events happening today. So there's activity going on for the future, and there are sets of data attributed to those activities, i.e. when was the booking confirmed, what size was it, what price was it, how many people, etc. So then it became blatantly obvious and weirdly obvious that benchmarking can be for the future as well as the past. And of course, that's the thing that everybody now wants. And I don't quite know why we didn't think of that in the first place, but maybe that's the benefit of doing these things in lockdown. So we've built this future looking benchmarking platform, which everybody wants now. They all look at it and go, oh my God, those two reports are amazing. And so we've somehow stumbled across a unique report that the industry has never had before. But the real challenge, I think, is to help them to make sense of the data, and I keep calling it, so what does it mean? And that's where, I think it's it's always going to be a work in progress, but we've got to help them because they're all unique. They're not like hotels where they've all got a bedroom that they need to sell. A bedroom's a bedroom. Okay, 2-star, 3-star, double, single. There's relatively few different data component parts, whereas an event is very fluid and lots of different component parts and lots of different uniquenesses about a venue. Although having said that, I don't think there are as many as people make out to be, but that's another question altogether.
Well, that's why we let people choose. That's the magic part. When you first described it to me, I thought what you were telling me, I hadn't understood that you'd been doing it. I thought it was a vision. And I thought, his problem is, and I started listing them in my head. And then I realized, hang on, you're saying you did this. And what was impressive is because you let people choose their comparison set, you limit the field for difference. And it's deliberate. And it's the wonderful part, because you limit the possibility that you're not comparing apples with apples. You've chosen other apples the same as your apple. The whole market comparison is hugely valuable because you can compare London venues against my one venue, or any venue. But where you say, I want to know, how do these guys do? These 5, these 8, these whatever they are, however many you choose in your comparison set, I want to be like them, or I feel like I'm like them, or I must be like them because we're very similar in ethos and design, and I feel this way. And show me that comparison. And I thought that was the gold. And then when, is it the spider chart where you actually find out for real how much like your comparison set?
Oh, the radar event types. Yeah.
You actually are.
Yeah.
You think you're the same as those 5 people because you'd like to be. But are you? And that's the best bit as well. Is like that you not only can you provide comparison that's when it's a comparison as an aspiration. I want to be like those people, or I am like those people. Show me the stuff. Show me the charts. Or I'd like to be like these people. Show me how far off I am. What do they do that's different? And that's awesome.
Well, I've got a great example of that. Yesterday I spoke to a sporting venue, a sporting club that also runs events, and they love the platform. They thought it was brilliant, what everybody's been waiting for, but the person who I spoke to knows his bosses, and he knows that his bosses will only join if there are other sporting venues that they can compare against. And I get that. I get that it's a very natural thing to say, well, I want to compare myself against all other sporting venues. So on one hand, I do agree with that, but he was saying that his bosses will say, and I don't want to compare myself against anybody else. I just want to compare myself against other sporting venues. And I'm saying, well, how do you know that they're doing the same sort of thing? And how do you know that you're losing business to other venues that aren't sporting venues, that are closer to you or similar in terms of makeup or structure or size or facility to you? How do you know that? And of course, the answer is they don't know. And they will never know unless they start measuring themselves against what they perceive to be similar venues. So the job there is to help them and explain to them that, you know, what you see is not necessarily what you're going to get, because as you just said, when you draw a comparison set and a number pops up and you're thinking, oh, I'm above or below, you then draw another chart that gives you the spider, as you called it, we call it the radar event type report, and it says, oh, well, my competitors, who I thought were the same as me, are doing a load of events that we don't do. So therefore, all of a sudden, the data is not meaningless, but it has another meaning in that case. So there's a big job. There's a big job to do, and we're only at the beginning, and it's all very exciting. But there is a big job to do with helping the users draw meaning from the data. We can give them statistical analytics, but to drive meaning from that, which will then encourage them to seek improvements and assistance in other areas, is something that is on our agenda, which I'm very excited about. In fact, I'm talking to lots of people about it, about how we can do that to help them. But you also do events as well. You've been running. I mean, how you must have been busy, not busy recently, because you've got some clients that run events. So they
not so busy and now getting busy.
Yeah.
I was on a call today actually. I've seen a lot of virtual events.
Oh yeah. All right.
And well, while virtual events are good for the client because they still get to present their product or do something or say something or be active in marketing, and they're good for the agency because it's doing something, right? Otherwise we're all doing nothing. It's a shame that virtual events aren't so good for the venues, but I don't think that's going to last long because the call I was on this morning was with a client.
They're awful.
Well, you could say they're awful and someone will challenge you on that, but this was firsthand. I was on the call with the client. They do lots of events internationally, very large client. They do white glove service events. The events that we did last year, amazing everything. Amazing experience for delegates. Not quite no expense spared. I mean, you'd say, if you were a delegate stood there, no expense spared. I love these events. And they report really well and they get great feedback. But anyway, I was on the call this morning planning something for the autumn. And the members of their team, sorry?
This autumn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So lead times have changed.
Hang on, planning a real event for this autumn.
No, planning virtual events.
Oh, planning a virtual event for this autumn.
Yeah. So lead times change in terms of planning and what we do as event organizers. You can turn something round in theory quicker because, well, anyway, they were saying the client had people on the call who had just finished their last virtual event with a different agency. And they hated the experience. Their delegation were not so complimentary. It was awful. It was bad business for them. And it boils down to what I think it was. They were saying how bad the platform was. The streaming platform was terrible. The delegates must have just wondered what on earth was happening, what was going on. This is terrible. And I think it's because, but they, knowing what happened, they reviewed this stuff. They were very diligent in choosing the right platform and the right agency to deliver it and the right technology and becoming a brand name in the industry, virtual event technology. They chose it. They were happy. They got to the event and they found out that it doesn't work like they thought it worked because they hadn't asked the right questions. So when you build an event in 2019, as an event organizer, you ask the right questions. You ask about hall times. When can we be in? When do we start building? What's the delivery address? What does a tracking label look like? How do we operate security? Where's the catering office? All of those questions as event organizers, and in fact the clients too, they've been doing this for a while. They know the questions, right? They know the questions to ask because they've fallen in those holes when they started years ago. They ask the questions now and they know their event is going to be amazing. Virtual events, it's a different set of questions. They don't know what to ask. They don't necessarily know how to buy. They don't know what to ask. And what happened on this thing is they got to the day, platform set up, content ready. It was a mixture of pre-record and live. And the platform organizers said, there you go, who's pressing the play button?
Okay, that's a small matter.
The agency said, well, you are, aren't you? We bought this from you. You are. And then the client said, well, they are, aren't they? They are.
Okay.
And the platform people said, no, we sold you the thing. You're doing it. So we sold you the thing and you're doing it. Well, do you know what? As a software provider, all I want is to build things that someone else uses. For me to build it and then get a request that I operate a tool I've built, that is a complete waste of time. And that's why I like to hide in the shadows, because that's not a popular opinion.
Yeah.
I don't build tools with buttons so that I can use them. A tool I use doesn't have buttons. I can just change a 1 to a 0 in the database and it happens. I don't
Is
need
that a bit like saying, I'm going to give a really rubbish analogy here. It's like a car manufacturer supplying the drivers.
So I don't like to operate.
Tesla might do with their futuristic
when they're trying.
drive only. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't like to operate a product that I've built for someone else to operate. And that's exactly what's happening in virtual events. People are getting to the day, getting to the event, and they don't have the right skill set to operate the thing. And they didn't know they had to because they didn't ask.
That throws up so many questions. I mean, that question of skill set I've seen it a lot recently on LinkedIn. That's my main and only platform of use these days. Mainly because I'm old and I don't do TikTok. But there's a new job coming, which is a digital event planner. Which, you may shake your head for those who are listening and not watching. But I mean, it might be a real thing. Basically, what's happening is nobody knows. And I keep referencing this. I'm the dullest person in the world because I keep referencing this in all my blogs and all my features and all my articles. You know, you don't know what you don't know, and you know what you don't know, and you know unknown unknowns and known unknown, all that sort of crap. Anyway, and with digital, going back to what you're saying, with digital virtual events, there are so many unknown unknowns that it's almost impossible to plan for them because you just don't know, you don't know what's going to happen. You've got no idea. And the users don't know what they don't know either. So they don't know how they're going to respond.
The other woeful statistic from the call I had this morning, and I'd love to tell you who it was, but they said the biggest disaster on the day is access. People registered ahead of time, like you'd expect. We knew who was coming. We could keep canvassing and marketing to them to remind them to turn up. We put things in their calendars. We made sure that the delegation we'd established was going to turn up on the day. Free events in person, the drop-off is about 50%, right? I'd love to know what the drop-off for virtual events is, because I do know that at this disaster, 50% of the delegation couldn't access because they had no idea what their password was.
Oh, no.
Now, if you turn up for real and you don't know your name or who you are, someone's going to find you on the computer and give you your badge. Even if you don't know your name, someone can give you your badge and you did register and you can go into the event. Thanks a lot, Pete. But if they're at home on their laptop, honestly, I have a very low expectation of capability when it comes to users. Expect the worst and you're never disappointed. But I wouldn't have said 50% for logging in. In my experience, there are people that just can't log in no matter what you do. Well, that's the 5%. But there are people that get it wrong because they can't find it or forgot. That's probably 15%. 80% of adults, having been told something only one time, are capable of what you've told them to do.
80%?
I think so. Do you know, I've got some...
Ooh, I think that's high.
No, it's not, because I've got some software that it's an organizational piece for care homes and 200 members of staff. Typically, when you onboard 200 people, 10% struggle and you have to help them. Now, 10% struggle and you have to help them because 8% of them have never used a computer or have not got an email address. And so you have to find another way. Largely speaking, adults who aren't familiar with technology and don't use computers daily can do this. But this virtual event, for some reason, and do you know what it was? It's because they'd registered to register and they had to re-register for the platform because the systems weren't connected. Okay.
Hang on, but why did they register to register?
They create their ticket. If people use, I don't want to badmouth Eventbrite, but say you use Eventbrite to establish your registrations. The people that are coming, they get their ticket, they know all about it. Eventbrite's pretty good. And they know they're coming. But the platform for streaming and video, that's not connected to Eventbrite. So either you, as the event organizer, take that Excel file and upload it and make sure that their access is ready, or you didn't know you had to do that because this is a virtual event and my reg system doesn't talk to my streaming platform or my presentation system or whatever.
Crikey.
So connectivity was left down to the delegate.
Fraught with danger.
So anyway, you get the point. And in fact, there's a disastrous public example of this. Gusto did a 1 million table dinner thing a few months back. At the start of lockdown, they paid Grimmy and David Hay and Catherine Ryan, Paloma Faith. They got celebrities to have a Gusto box at home. And it was a streaming event and 1 million people were supposed to join in and watch these celebrities have dinner and chat. And it was a Gusto marketing publication. Now, at the beginning of lockdown, and I'm sure the agency has learned a lot from this, it was, you'll find articles about the disaster. It became so bad that it became good. Is that the technology failed entirely. The celebrities couldn't hear each other. The producers couldn't contact the celebrities. The connectivity was poor. The premise was great. The delivery with technology was such a disaster. There are articles on the web, not about Gusto or a dinner party with celebrities or this great big, an opportunity to have social media bait as interesting as that bunch eating dinner, which would be great. If it had gone off great, it would have been interesting. What's reported is the disaster, and it better not be you next time. It better not be your brand.
Well, I think this may even warrant a pod all by itself, because we'll bring on some virtual people. We'll bring on a for and against, have a bit of a almost have a debate about it. Because
I'll see if I can get the guys that delivered this event on. For the no.
Oh, okay. For the no, yeah. As in for the don't do it. Avoid at all costs. Well, it is going to be fascinating watching it all play out, because all the venues, and this is actually a good question. It segues nicely into the another question, which is all the venues have had to, not because they want to, and not because they believe it's going to last for very long, but they've had to upgrade their tech so that they can do virtual events. Even if they don't end up doing any, it's a bit like the Nightingale hospitals. They're going to have to do it. Maybe it's a bad analogy. Oh no, quite a good one actually.
Let's make that a bad analogy because they all stayed empty.
Yeah, but that's my point. That's my point. I think the virtual events won't happen. So I think a venue. I know all the venues have invested in a virtual capability from a technical point of view, and that might just be a fatter pipe. I don't know, but they've invested in the virtual capability so that when the client phones them and says, "Can I have my event in your venue?" and they say yes, and the client says, "Do you have virtual capability?" and the venue says no, it's it's immediately struck off. So they've all got to say, yes, we do. And then they work on the detail and they ask the questions that they don't know they have to ask yet. But I think that there's going to be a lot of venues that have invested in it that don't ever use it, because I don't know whether it's going to be that widely adopted. I think there will be some people that do it, and I think the ones that do it will probably learn lessons and do it very well, but it's going to be a long old road. But how do we then, as a platform, and this is a question I've been asked by lots of, actually none of the venues have asked me for it, but lots of other people have asked me. We measure activity within a venue, and part of our criteria and part of the, not the parameters, but the selection criteria is, what is your event? Is it a party, a reception, a banquet, a meeting, conference, whatever? And therefore, how many people come to it and what's the price? And should we have a separate category for hybrid?
Well, when you're saying that, see, I didn't know this. So you're saying venues...
No, sorry, I've just sprung this one on.
So the expectation is... So I'm trying to imagine, as you were telling me, I was trying to leap ahead and imagine what they've bought, because there's a huge opportunity for secondary audience to the client. So the client still wants people in the room.
Yeah.
The opportunity for venues, I'm imagining straight away, is that there's a second audience. And it used to be that the second audience was the content captured on the day, put in some kind of library online, and you can come along and watch the sessions because they were recorded on the day. Now, with good tech on site, the venue can sell that service instead of the AV company coming into the venue selling that service. So the AV on the day still exists. If the venue has a good platform, then they're in the running to provide that second audience live, rather than rather than just here's a room, go for it, guys. You can't just do here's a room, go. But
they don't own. But the venue doesn't own the audience. The venue rarely owns the audience. It only owns the relationship with the booker, i.e., the event planner / manager, whether that's an agent or whether it's a direct client. And they'll come in and pay for the room, pay for the catering, pay for the AV, and then go away again. So if so a typical conference, for example, is going to go from 150 people in the room, and the venue make money from 150 people having, spending £80 a head on food. They spend £10,000 on venue hire, and they spend quite a few £1,000s on AV. Now, all of a sudden, the venue hire stays the same. The catering almost disappears because there's not many people in the room. So the catering is gone. And the AV, you might get a bump in AV because they're charging a premium because they're going to bolt on the streaming service. But if that event is shown to 2,000 people external to the venue doesn't get a cut of that.
Well, they do if the proposition comes from them, then, because if they don't put their hand up and say, I can help you with the online portion of this, then they're just going to buy it from the AV company who will have sold the end-to-end whole thing, or the event organizers who will know how to deliver this. I saw something great in the demo today, and being a desk monkey who doesn't really like to be even in an open plan office.
You don't like to go out.
I don't like to go out, mate. Well, I don't like people, so that's fine. There was a networking tool that I saw today, and it was very, very visual, and it was a virtual networking tool. And I said, bullshit. Now, you're doing the same. I said, bullshit.
No.
Because I've been there with event app conversations.
I've
hideous. Seen the number of people that don't download the event app because they just don't want an event app. Anyway, this thing, the people watching the sessions and the keynote, and it was a presentation of what a virtual event looks like. And then they took us off to the networking room where your head appeared as a picture, as a circle.
Oh, God.
And you clicked and dragged your head to someone else, and something unexpected. I was kind of like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, what happened was your camera and mic came on, And if they accepted, it immediately put the two of you together in a meeting. Boom, because my head was dragged onto your head, and boom, we're in a meeting. And the view was broken up into subjects, so topics of conversation, and you can have up to 30 people in the room. And this is not the Emperor's New Clothes. I was impressed because it's the first time I'd seen it. I'm sure there are people listening or watching who, yeah, I know what that is, and we've seen that.
I've never heard of it. I thought you were going to talk avatars and all that sort of.
No, but it wasn't AR or VR. It wasn't tedious shit like that. It was as much tech and visualization of the process as it needed to be great. So I dragged my head onto your head because your head was lingering down in the corner of the screen that wanted to talk about technology and the reason we're at this virtual conference. And you said, yes, I'll chat to Phil. And it just went boom. Now we're in the room and you and I are talking, and you can come out of the room with the other people in it, and it's just me and you. This networking tool was a drag and drop conversation starter. And I thought, now that's good. I then thought this morning, and I was being prompted by you when you said, oh, venues are now investing in the virtual
hybrid
portion. Yeah. Why doesn't the venue hook into these products and say, if you're at the event in my venue, we've got a series of smaller rooms over here, and the delegates, if you walk into the room, in there is an immersive experience. You're surrounded by screens and audio of the people who can't be here, but still want to talk to you about your subject, because that, what I just described, is happening online. This event is also online while you're here and here for real. It's also online because we've got the tech to run it hybrid. It's happening now.
Do you know what the tech is called? What that platform is called? Are you allowed to say?
I'd say if I could remember.
Okay.
I've had a Guinness, so I can't. I'll find out for the next episode. But anyway, imagine walking into a small room, no bigger than this one. The venue, it could even be curtained off, as long as it's kind of not going to interfere with the audio in the next room. Walking into a room that is labeled by subject matter, and there are real people in there that you can talk to for real, and it's combined with the online experience for the people who want to speak about this subject. They want to see. You can't network with people you can't see. I think that's why networking apps are such shit and have such poor adoption. If you can see, this is the stuff that lockdown or Corona has changed, possibly for the better, because we got used to it and done well. It's an opportunity for when events are back and we're all standing in venues again. I'm looking forward to that happening, but there will be an awful lot of people who will be very slow to return, who also want to be part of this action. And the venues, I believe, can provide that mechanism by having technology and capability on site. So instead of the AV company telling their client, don't worry, we'll deal with the whole online experience ourselves, the venue has a part to play in saying, yeah, but you've got to lug all that gear in and do this and do that and do that. We have it locked down. Plug in your feed to our venue. Our venue is ready to be virtual and in real.
So the venue has got to make some big calls on tech and investment, because
but do you know what?
If they get it wrong, if they choose the wrong platform and invest a shitload of money, then, and everybody, it's like beta and VHS, isn't it? If you choose the wrong one, then you've backed the wrong horse, and you're going to have to spend twice. That's
true, but it's not quite the same, because a software purchase nowadays, software vendors that know what they're doing, it's a transient thing. It can come and go. There's no commitment. You can actually.
No, it's not hardware, I suppose, is it? It's just
right. Yeah. So your hardware is a screen, and you'll still have the screen when you get rid of the software provider you don't like.
Okay.
So the screens and the mics and the big pipes and whatever hardware you've installed is yours. But also, they don't have to invest it themselves. They could have a prepared product. They could productize the idea, partner with an AV that knows the space and is a regular user of their venue space and say, here's what we've dreamt up. Can you be the provider of this service? And we'll be part of that sale, because we will say it's a capability of this venue, because we rely on you and trust you and know that you can deliver it. Here's what we imagined. Anyway, we're inventing things that don't exist. And that's
that's not a bad place to be, just if only just a spitball. But the question that I asked originally, and I'll go back to, is should we should think about how that could have an impact on the benchmarking. I don't think we have any answer to that, whether we have any opinions. But
we do, because so the way that it works with the event is captured with 7, 9, how many metrics on the event? Whatever the metrics are, I remember we just added new ones, right? There was a point at which we had 5 metrics and we said, we need to capture this and this, and it became 7.
Yeah.
So your audience, delegation size is one of the metrics. We would just split it, delegation on site, online.
Okay.
It would, for us, that doesn't pose a challenge.
So we don't have to, that's interesting. So we don't give it another, so it's not a conference, a meeting, or a hybrid, or a tick box. You know, is your event hybrid? We just do an audience split.
Totally.
Potentially. But then we have to...
The answer to is your event hybrid is implied. We don't ask them 2 things. We ask them 1 thing: on-site and online audience size.
Yeah.
And if both of these are not 0, then we can provide our own hidden metric that we don't bother people with, is hybrid, yes or no, which becomes a metric available to everybody. And in our future planning, they can filter by hybrid events planned. Everything feeds everything in terms of the way that we've built what we've built. If it's a question you can ask before the event, then it's a metric you can look at.
Okay, so I think what we should do then is we should get clever people together, clever industry people together, and ask if they want. Well, we'll ask the venue performance executive, as we've called them, and discuss the hybrid element. You know, how many people are adopting it really? How significant is it? You know, are they just saying they can do it and we'll worry about the delivery later? And also, as technology evolves, there might well be a certain way that, you know, all venues start to deploy it. So we should definitely look at it and keep our ear close to the ground. But I'm not sure we should offer it yet, because I think we might be measuring the wrong things. We need to think about it.
Oh, sure. And just spitballing about an idea, essentially, this thing is just a great big Zoom meeting where the people in the room didn't need their laptops because we did the room. So everyone else is at home experiencing a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
But you just walked through the door. You're in the conference room and everyone else has dialed in. I mean, put like that, it's not visionary, it's just ordinary. But actually, I've never seen a live event do that. The online portion or the online opportunity from the live events I've seen, always afterwards. It's a long tail. Never during. We stream keynotes, we stream content during the event, that's true. But we don't offer the ability for people to converse and meet all the good parts of events. It's the networking and the meeting and, well, the good parts of the food and the drinks as well, but you don't get those. So, but all the real value, if there was none of this stuff, an event would be like school. You go to learn, you go home. It wasn't fun. Events are still popular and necessary because of the après event, the chat, the being there, the knowledge bumping into old people, seeing how other people do their jobs because it's the same as your job. You learn more by being there because you're looking in the mirror at other people on the same subject. And putting that online has been, is a shame when that part of it is so fundamentally poorly delivered that when I saw that thing this morning and I thought, right, that's that back in, that's that opportunity returned to events virtually. And I want to see that stuff stay when we're all back in the room as well.
Yeah, because it won't take away. It'll just be an addition.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an either or. It'll be an expansion of the power and the use of events. That's the exciting bit.
It's a new requirement for events. If there's an opportunity anywhere, that's new. No one did that before, and they can do it now because people are used to the idea, and the technology is better every day. So there's an opportunity. So who's going to sell it? If it's a real thing, who's going to sell it? You can guarantee it'll be the AV companies that put their hand up and say, well, we can do that. The opportunity now is for the venue to very quickly get someone to provide that capability, and that be something that the expectation will be formed because it's new, that the venue do that bit. If not, the AV companies will say, well, that's our bit, we do that bit. Or the event organizers will say, we'll do that bit.
Well, that's brilliant, isn't it? Because that's a new revenue stream for the venues. It's a brand new revenue stream for the venues. Simple as that.
It is, yeah.
So, and therefore that falls onto our plate because we need to work out a way of measuring that and reporting against that.
But is this
which is relatively simple?
Yeah,
he said, not being the builder.
I think this differs. The reason why venues don't provide the full AV on is because it's a huge investment. Everyone wants something different. If you've got 20 pink lights and the next client wants green lights, then why? That's what AV companies are for. But this stuff is known. The technology is predictable and known every time. You're delivering a product that's the same stuff. So it's investment in the idea is ring fenced. It's only the spend isn't going to change. And once you're in, you're in. Especially if you just find someone else to do it.
Okay. Well, let's bring somebody on the next pod or a future pod that has maybe an AV person.
I can get you a really great AV person on here.
Who would that be? No, let's not talk about it because he or she might not want to come onto the pod. Okay. Well, look, Phil, it's been great. We ventured into other areas that we didn't know we were going to go into, but that's the whole point of these things. I want to keep them quite informal. We want to keep them quite informal. And when we have more people involved, not just you and me banging on about what we think, it'll be quite exciting. So we're going to bring in some AV people, some venue people, some consultancy people, some catering people. They'll be quite good to have some catering on because that's a big old complex bag of nuts, that one is, isn't it? Because if they're looking at reduced catering charges, especially with the whole COVID thing, that's where and those caterers, they manage and are responsible for the venue in a lot of cases. They take on a venue management, sales and management contract. So it's always been, well, because catering has always been the biggest chunk of the revenue. But if it's not anymore, or not necessarily anymore, because a big chunk of revenue is going to come from tech, software, and the amplification of their event externally, then maybe tech.
All of these things, no matter how good the tech, events close business. Online, I can escape the email, escape the follow-up phone call. I can be elusive when it comes to signing and closing as a customer. Events close business, and people will always, businesses will always want an in-person event as soon as they're allowed to, because virtual events, it's a phone call, isn't it? It's another phone call. It's part of as a sales process, it's a full stop at the event. Actually, it's another phone call if it was a virtual event. You didn't, they were, and nothing closes like a bit of a schmooze and some nice catering, entertainment, special feeling, whatever magic happens at events. And I've been to plenty of events where the magic's happening all the time, and if the purpose of a conference is to promote or close or market or impress, virtual doesn't do those things.
No.
It carries on the conversation. It reminds you they're still there.
Yeah, but it's a holding job, isn't it? It's like an airplane in a holding pattern before it actually lands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So anyway,
okay.
But don't worry about caterers. We're still going to want their cakes,
Their food. Yes.
and beer.
Their time will come back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Phil. Well, listen, great to speak with you. Great that our lovely customers and audience can finally meet you. And they will be able to regularly as well. Every couple of weeks. You'll be there with your Guinness, chatting away about...
Just loosens the wheels a little bit.
Yes, exactly. I think we should make it a condition. I think we should make it a condition for every guest we get on. We have to do it at 5 o'clock, and it has to involve a glass of something. I was going to say something narcotic, but that doesn't really make, especially if they're teetotal. That's not going to work, is it? Anyway, great to speak to you. I speak to you a lot, obviously, so it's always great for me, but great for our audience as well. So thanks for giving up the time, and look forward to the next one.
Righty-ho. No problem.
Cheerio.
See ya.